So hey guys, it's Zion again, and let me start out by apologizing for not having any of the Bioshock Infinite Let's Play up on either Saturday or today, which is Sunday for me. The long and short of it is, I never took the time to put together the episodes, and I've gotten a little lax in my updating schedule. So, for the most part, I'm going to be uploading, hopefully, those Let's Plays and other games, other gameplays and commentaries on weekdays only at this point, giving me at least a weekend to recharge my batteries or what have you. And I know it is some more Black Ops 2, but if I'm honest, I don't see myself getting back on Battlefield 3 for any reason except playing with some of the company crew. And those that still play it, which that number is growing thinner and thinner every day. I know Urtsy and Culprit are on League of Legends and Dota, Skulls is on Guild Wars 2, and a whole bunch of others are on either Dota or League or just another genre entirely like Dota and League. And so I've been playing Black Ops 2, which I'm also getting bored with, and I want to finish Bioshock Infinite, but I'm sort of in that mid-phase where there's not really a game I want to be playing right now, and I will probably, hopefully, be getting a job when you're seeing this. I will have probably done the interview at that point. So, uploading might be a little less frequent, it might be a little more common, I might be doing more COD still. I might upload some zombies. I'll find something to occupy my time, but for the most part, expect that if I don't start doing Let's Plays, I'll start doing a lot of live comms, and if you watched my last Battlefield 3 Scavenger live com, you know that I was a complete complaining bitch. And I hope to not have to do that anymore, and so I'll try to practice my live comms, get those more on par with some of the ones you see elsewhere on YouTube. And now, wasting no more of your considerable, or not considerable time, I want to get into something that I had another topic for this commentary. Well, I had three. First was the idea of smack talk, of professional smack talk, fun smack talk with your friends, and when smack talk is never an option to do, like with the Boston Massacre sort of stuff. And then I thought there was another topic that I've lost at this point, which is what I really wanted to do, and so I've settled back on my secondary topic, which is agency in single-player games, and it's particularly relevant because of Bioshock Infinite. One of the things about a single-player game that is even approaching open world, because Bioshock Infinite is a linear storytelling. It is a story with a beginning, middle, and end, unlike Skyrim, where the beginning, middle, and end is only what you make the beginning and middle end to be. And so, what is the agency that Bioshock allows you? Well, if you go back to the original Bioshock, the main character, the player character, said maybe 2 or 3 lines throughout the entirety of the game, which was important because it was, when you get to the "Would you kindly" section of that game, it's you, the player, who is affected, not the character you're playing as. And while I haven't watched Ken Levine's interview on why he gave Booker a voice, which I probably should at some point, there's been arguments made that Irrational took away some of the player's agency by making it partly Booker's story and less the player's story. And in single-player games, when you're focused on the story and when the mechanics are not so important, as in most Bioshock games, where they take into account certain things and try to make it gamey while telling a story and entertaining you, at the same time, they're coming back and saying, alright, well, the story has characters, and the characters are important to the story, and we can't have the player completely immersed. And then you have a game like Half-Life 2, where the main character says nothing the entirety of the game, and is almost completely supposed to be an analog for the player. And so the agency lies completely with the player, him or herself. And the decision to continue doing these actions is, in large part, responsible on the player, because if they don't, the game will simply stagnate and nothing will happen. I still think there's a sense of agency, because people will say that one of the things they love about Half-Life, or any game that gives you real agency, real ability to work within the world as a player yourself, is the ability to just try to do stupid, silly things while the NPCs in the world are being all super serious about their lives. For example, in Half-Life 2, Alex Vance might be talking to her father, and it's a very serious conversation, but you, as Gordon Freeman, and also as an analog for the player, are jumping around, jumping on her head, shooting her with gravity gun grabbed items, hitting her with saw blades, hitting her with all these things that can't kill her as an invincible NPC. these are things that make the game what it is. These are things that make the game fun. But then there's a game like BioShock Infinite where the player is assumed, partly at least, to be invested in the world. And with Booker as the main character having a voice, being an actual character unto himself, there's a certain amount of player control that has to be ceded to the game. And so BioShock Infinite, more than its predecessor, and BioShock 2 I'm not counting here because that was just a cash-in as far as 2K was concerned, is much more a story than it is a game. It's still a game in the fact that you can get on a skyline, or you can be jumping around like a chicken with its head cut off, just doing silly things while Elizabeth or the other NPCs and the world are doing the exposition for you. Booker DeWitt, as the character he is, and if you're invested enough in his character to really care, you wouldn't normally do that. You know, knowing what kind of man Booker is, some people will probably do it anyway just because they're trolls or because they want to have fun playing their games. But if you are invested in the character of Booker DeWitt almost as much as you are as Elizabeth, because it is her story, then really you know that he wouldn't be doing these things. And so you don't do them because it's not the person you're portraying or the person that is acting as your avatar within the world. It's not something that they would normally do. Whereas with someone like Gordon Freeman, who is a non-entity, unless the player gives him actual actions. Because if you think about it, Booker DeWitt has hands. When he drives a car, you see his hands. When he's on the skyline, you see his hands. You see all these things that are him. Whereas with Gordon Freeman, all you see is his hands when he's using a gun. If he's driving a car, if he's using an item, all of it, there's somebody floating in the air. And if you take the FOV back far enough, you see that Gordon Freeman, except for his first-person view model with the gun, he doesn't exist. He is a camera. And as such, the player's body is to act as Gordon's body because that's all they're able to see, is their own hands and their own body, except when, of course, Gordon is holding a gun. And if you really want to, you could take the view models off, but keep the crosshairs on the screen, and so it's really like you're holding the gun and shooting people. But agency in a video game, especially a single-player video game, really becomes important when the story being told revolves around the player's opinions and the player's perspectives. A game like BioShock Infinite, where there is a very distinct message, there is a very clear idea or set of ideas that Irrational is trying to convey, while it's still not a movie and it's still not a book, it still has to be fun for the player and it still has to invest them in the world in a way that movies and books might not be able to. Players need to remember that the game they're playing defines the agency that they have in the game. And if you're playing a BioShock game, you are probably not playing it for the graphics, for the gunplay. You are playing it because you value the stories and the worlds that Irrational creates for you. But if you want to play a game where agency and usability is completely your own as a player, you want to play an open world game like Skyrim or Fallout, where the game is for you and you alone. It is not for anyone else. Because to me, there are certain stories that can only be told through certain perspectives. And while I don't agree with Hideo Kojima's idea that you have to fill your game with cutscenes, nor do I agree with the idea that a player should be completely free of the game's shackles, I do think that players and designers alike should understand what the game they're creating or playing is all about. What is the story about? And I think the ultimate zenith of this arrives when the player and the character that's representing him within the world are both invested in the world because they want to be and because almost as if they were born there. But more importantly, that the player's agency is driven by his desire to see the world and the stories inside of it.